It's time to get inside the Giants huddle.
Huddle up, huddle up, huddle up.
On Giants.com.
Here we go.
And the Giants mobile
Get
app.
them in there, let's go.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of the Giants Huddle Podcast. My name is John Schmeelk. And don't forget, the Giants Huddle Podcast is presented by PSE&G Energy Efficiency for game time and anytime. All right, folks, a three-part podcast as usual on our Friday. We're going to lead off with my interview with Giants wide receiver Richie James. Then we're going to have a Jeff Joniak Bears preview. He's the play-by-play man for the Bears on the radio with Lance Medow and Paul Dottino. And finally, Bob Papa's weekly sit-down with Giants head coach Brian Daboll. And before we get to those interviews, just very quickly, make sure you go back one episode on this podcast feed. I had a great interview with Daryl Johnston, now an analyst for Fox, former Cowboys fullback from the 90s, big rival with the Giants. And he's doing the game for Fox on Sunday, Giants-Bears. He had the Giants in Week 2 against Carolina, so very familiar with the team. And Daryl Moose Johnson gives us some great insight on the Giants and the matchup on Sunday. But before we get going, folks, just remember the latest draft season podcast dropped late on Wednesday. Go back on your podcast feeds, search for draft season. You'll find it on the Giants mobile app or at giants.com/podcast. Dane Brugler from The Athletic joins myself, Eric Crocker, and Tony Pauline, and we talk about what's going on in the college football season as we try to keep up with everything so we're not starting from scratch when we hit NFL draft season, which usually begins in earnest after the NFL season. All right, let's get to our podcast today. We'll lead off with my one-on-one with Giants wide receiver Richie James. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's start here. You lead the Giants in receptions right now. What has it been like trying to build a chemistry with Daniel where you've become one of his most reliable go-to receivers?
Oh, it's been good. Just come in and every day we just working and building and just trying to get that chemistry going, like you said.
What is it about working with Daniel in this offense specifically? I know the slot guys can a lot of times have a lot of options on these routes depending on leverage and stuff like that, where you've had to get on the same page in a limited amount of time.
It's been good. He's smart, and I feel like I'm smart too. So when you got two guys on the same page in this offense, it can get some things going.
Has it been difficult building chemistry, not with Daniel, but as a wide receiver group, given how many injuries you've had to deal with, guys in and out of the lineup? What has it been like as a group, just trying to build that chemistry between you guys together? I
think we still work. It's all a process regardless, whether it's me or other guys. I think we all trying to build that chemistry with Daniel. It's hard when you injure, and the timing is different and, trying to get back on that same page. But like I said, it's a process. We're just going to continue to work on it every day.
What's the key to being a good slot receiver in the NFL?
Discipline. You got to be smart. A lot of the decisions, everything's happening fast in the slot, versus when you're on the outside. You're on the island pretty much. But you got linebackers, you got safeties, you got nickel corners. So it's a lot going on. You got to be smart and find zones and stuff like that.
Without giving away state secrets, what's the process for you like when you line up? You're looking at the coverage pre-snap, then you start running your route, making that decision that's the right one based on the coverage you're seeing in terms of what kind of route you're going to run, but also making sure Daniel knows what decision you're going to make so he can time the route and the pattern right with you when you're trying to execute the play.
First you got to look at the safeties and see what they're doing. Or is it two high, one high, whatever's going on? Is it man or is it zone? So that's my process when I line up. And then it's, okay, what do other guys around me have, what I can and I can't do, how deep can I go on this route, how short can I go on this route. It's a lot going on in my head. I can't really tell you exactly what's going on, but it's a lot going on. Like, all right, what's this guy doing? Has he gotten beaten on this before? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot going on.
A lot going on punt return, too. A lot of decisions you have to make. Do you run up? Do you catch the ball? Do you fair catch it? Do you go? Take us through that and kind of what your process is once that ball in the air and you're deciding what to do on a punt return.
First, I'm looking at the kicker or the punter and see where he's going, whether is he's facing one way, he's going that way, or is he got a pull hook in his bag of tricks. So,
sure.
That's number one. Then I'm looking at the release of gunners and see if they get a clean, good release. And now I'm thinking, okay, how far this ball is going, is it wind, where is it going at? Then trying to get to the spot. But I'm still peeking at these gunners, like looking like, all right, well, okay, this guy's kind of close, and this guy, he's far away. But I'm aggressive, so I'm willing to catch with somebody 2 yards in front of me. So
Well, look, the rules are in place to protect you, right? So that's why they're there. But how much discipline does that take to, A, be willing to catch it, be willing to, take the hit, and also not peeking down while the ball's coming down, because then you get muffs, and there's no quicker way to get pulled from that job than like muffing punts, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, like you said, you gotta be a crazy sucker to do this job. I'm not gonna lie. It's you gotta have a little psycho in you to go out there on punt return or kick return. You got guys flying down. Some of these guys, it's the only thing they do. So you got to realize they want to make that play. So, you got a lot to think about when you're doing it back there.
Does that crazy and psycho help you when you have to block these like 270-pound edge guys in the run game when you're playing slot receiver too?
I think that comes from, just where the last place I was at, just that physical, run, grimy stuff. So, that kind of, builds a little calluses in your mind and your body a little bit.
For the fans that don't know, you were with San Francisco, and they're the king of the outside zone. So as the slot guy, you were at the point of attack a lot of times in those plays, right?
You're blocking DNs, linebackers, and it's crazy out there, man. It's crazy.
It's fun, though. What is it like blocking for Saquon, who really looks like the old Saquon right now?
Man, just watching him run, how explosive he is and how fast he get up on people it's pretty cool. I used to watch on TV, but it's different when you're playing with him and you on the field with him and how his energy, he's a real leader. He's gonna lead you, so he's gonna pick you up and tell you that you need to make a play. So I like watching him, just watching him. I mean, I can't watch him too much because that means I'm not doing my job, but I like watching him.
No, I hear you, man. Absolutely. Let's talk about the Bears a little bit. When you take a look at their defense on tape, what do you see?
They're pretty sound. I mean, you could tell they're still working through things. They got young players. They got a mixed group, and it's a small sample too, so you're not going to see it too much. But we're just going to take wherever they give us.
Is it a lot of zone still? I know that's what Eberflus did in Indianapolis. A lot of too deep. Has he brought a lot of that to what he's doing in Chicago?
Yeah, it's a good amount of zone. They mix in man in there too, but it's a lot of zone going on. But you got to just you kind of got to find your space.
What are things as a receiver when you see a team has a lot of young cornerbacks, and they're rolling out a lot of young cornerbacks on that team? What do you maybe do differently is the wrong way to ask it, but what are some of the things that maybe you can take advantage of when you're dealing with a young corner that doesn't have a ton of experience that's lining up across from you?
And that just comes with just playing the game within the game. Knowing who you're going against. If they're a young guy, they don't really know what to expect, and you hit them with stuff. Now you got them on their toes. Now you playing the game within the game. So that's really the biggest key. Knowing that young player, what he hasn't even seen yet, and you taking advantage of that.
Speaking of game within the game, Eddie Jackson knows how to get after the football, right? He has 2 picks this year. He had a couple quiet years, but before then, one of the best ball hawks in football. What do you guys have to do to make sure he's not one step ahead of your offense, trying to read some of your routes and passes to come up with some of those takeaways?
I mean, I think it goes to the whole defense, not just one specific person. But we got to just be smart. Everybody, players got to make plays, and Dane's gonna make plays, and the receiver's gotta make plays, and he's gonna get some. He's a good player, so you can't knock him for that. But it's a team game, so we ain't really focused on one player, as you said that.
All right, I'm going to dig into your background a little bit here before we say goodbye. 2021, tough season for you, knee injury, you had to sit out the whole year. What was that like for you, trying to bounce back from that? Because you were a 7th-round pick, you're from a small school, we'll get into that too. A lot of times, a guy like that has a season-ending injury. It's tough to come back and find a roster and continue in the league. How did you stick with it and then, find this opportunity this year with the Giants?
I had to, dig deep because this is my first time playing or not playing for 20-some years, and not in the league, obviously. But I played ball since I was 5, so this is my first time sitting out a whole year. I had to dig deep. I'm not gonna lie. I had to dig deep and figure out who I wanted to be as an individual, and then if I can play again, who I'm gonna be as a player. And a lot of that just came from I was having a baby at the time, so that kept me motivated a little bit. And it works out how it works out, and now I'm here and I'm happy.
What was that rehab process like, trying to come back from that?
It was difficult for sure because I never had a knee injury, so I never knew what to expect. But a lot of work, man. I didn't think that went into it, but it's a lot of work, man. A lot of taking care of your body that you didn't think you have to, but you have to take care of your body and just be smart. What you put in your body, the fluid you're drinking, all this stuff that you really don't pay attention to that goes into getting back on the field and getting back to your normal self.
How much did your path going to Middle Tennessee State, being a 7th-round pick, you're not handed a roster spot in that situation. You got to earn that, right? You're not a first-round pick that they're giving stuff to you. How much did all that hard work to earn your way onto the 49ers and be a significant part of their team for a couple of years help continue to drive you and form your work ethic to come back from that injury?
Just going to being drafted by that organization alone, that's a top-tier organization. It's only a few of them, but it's, just going to that organization alone and having those guys trust me and for 4 years of just being a returner and wherever, they implemented me into. And just knowing that, they went to Super Bowl. Well, we went to Super Bowl at the time. So it was like one of those things where I know I can play. Yeah. I've been on the Super Bowl team. So, it definitely helped a lot just thinking about, okay, I've been here before. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's the circumstances are different, but I've been here before.
I was interested in the mindset, as a guy who has to earn everything and take everything, right? It's not given to you. You got to take it. So how do you describe your mindset in terms of, frankly, how you made it? Because making it in the NFL is really hard. I don't got to tell you. What was your mindset to get over that hump and the ridge and be a successful NFL player coming from Middle Tennessee State?
Coming from Middle Tennessee State, it's a small school. That's enough of itself. You get doubted every game, whether you playing big school, small school. Like, you get doubted. So, it's just one of those things where, I've always been in a situation where I wasn't highly recruited, or even in high school, I wasn't. My coach, who's my guy, he told me, I don't know if he can run the 400, and I ran the 400 really well. So, he's going to be doubted regardless. And I was a small guy. So, you got that, that small man mentality, like, man, I'm tired of everybody thinking I can't do this. But at the end of the day, you can do it. It's a mindset.
Why'd you pick the Giants? Why'd you think it was going to work out? And did you somehow foresee what's going on now where you're like the number one target all of a sudden?
It's crazy because I believe in speaking things to existence. And I always told myself, even when I went to, got drafted by San Fran, I told myself before that in high school, I wanted to live in Cali. I lived in Cali. And before I got here, just crazy stories. I used to talk to some people, and I'm like, yeah, I love to go to New York. And one day, I've never been to New York. And then, there were one or two teams that was like, oh, we want you here. And it was a first start for me. And I wanted to be around people I didn't know from San Fran. I wanted to complete, restart. And this is the perfect place to start. And nobody was here. Everybody was new. So that's how I chose the Giants, really.
Yeah, because I tried to find any. Did you have any connections to the coaching staff or anything like that?
No, the only thing I can think of is if maybe if Daboll was in the Patriots at the time. I don't know. Then he know. I don't know where. I don't know. I really don't have no connections up here at all.
So you talk about speaking into existence. Was there anything from a football perspective, knowing that Kafka with the Chiefs and their offense, Daboll's the Bills' offense, did that play into any of it, or was this just kind of like a gut feel for you that you thought this would be a good spot?
Definitely wanted to go to an offense where we were passed a lot. And when I was training, now I think about it, when I was training in Fort Worth, Texas at APEC, Pat Mahomes is there, and Bobby was there, Bobby Stroop. And he was like, yeah, man, Kafka used to be in Kansas City. I was like, oh, dang, how you know that? So it's like, man, you need to go there. Like, they're going to throw the ball. So I'm like, oh, really? Like, so I got here, I started seeing the offense. I'm like, oh, I like this. So that's really like a little bit like, okay, I see where they're going with that because, Pat was throwing it. They're going, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh, I want to be in that same system.
So final question, because you just brought it up. Why, when you saw what they want to do with the offense, you're like, all right, this could work for me? What is it that you really like about this offense?
Man, any receiver love a passing offense. Any receiver, you ask any receiver, they're going to be like, yeah, I'd rather be there than any kind of other offense. Yeah, we want to throw it first down, fourth down, want to go for it. Yeah, this is where I want to be at.
People call offenses quarterback-friendly sometimes. Is this a receiver-friendly offense, though, given how much they allow you to use your individual skills and, frankly, your brains to get open?
Absolutely. It's both. I think it's a quarterback. Any quarterback would want to be here. Any receiver would want to be here. Frankly, running backs would, too, because the running backs get used as a receiver just as much. So, any offensive player, I would say, want to be here.
Why is it receiver-friendly?
I mean, how many receiver or offenses you will see that, like, you can – decide what you want to do on a route, get that to you in places. So it's hard to stop that, Why you think Diggs was always open? Why you think all these guys are always open? Now, mind you, it's it's scheme and, plays, playmakers. He's still a playmaker, but if you look at the scheme, like, dang, these guys can always win. You can always win. It's for you. You know what I'm saying?
How's the baby, by the way? Congratulations.
I appreciate it. And she's a menace right now. She's trying to escape her.
She walking already?
No, she's crawling everywhere right now, and it's starting to get scary right now. Yeah.
I have a 5-year-old. I have a 5-month-year-old at home as well. A 5-month-old at home, where it's just it's almost like they're actively trying to injure themselves at all times, isn't it?
Absolutely. I caught my daughter in the middle of the bed and the desk the other day chewing on my charger. So, 7 months. There you go. That's what you're getting at 7 months.
You got to start baby-proofing already, huh?
I thought I wasn't gonna have to, but I guess I do, huh?
Yeah, dude. It goes fast too, man. Enjoy it because it only gets tougher.
I heard. That's what I'm hearing.
Richie, good stuff, man. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, Giant fans, don't miss the first legacy game at MetLife Stadium on Sunday, October 2nd. The team will wear their throwback uniforms from the 80s and 90s as they host the Chicago Bears. The stadium will be branded in throwback designs, including the end zones appearing as they did in Super Bowl 21, exclusive collectible pennant as a giveaway for the first 30,000 fans, entertainment and activations themed from that era, complimentary themed NFTs, and more. Limited tickets are available. Visit Giants.com/tickets to secure your seat today. Thank you to Richie James for joining us to lead off our podcast. Now, let's preview that game against the Chicago Bears. Lance Medow and Paul Dottino talk to the voice of the Bears on the radio, Jeff Joniak.
Giants wrap up a 3-game homestand this Sunday when they host the Chicago Bears at MetLife Stadium, a matchup between a pair of 2-1 teams. This is actually the 5th consecutive season they're squaring off. To set the scene for Chicago, we are now joined by the radio play-by-play announcer for the Bears, Jeff Joniak. Jeff, you got Lance Medow and Paul Dottino here on Giants.com. Greatly appreciate the time. Hope all is well. How's everything on your end?
Pretty good. Getting ready for fall. Temperatures dropping over here in Chicago and ready to go to New York. Always love going to MetLife for a Bears-Giants matchup. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. We are as well. And I want to start off in terms of a comparison, Jeff, between both of these teams, because it seems as if they're a bit of a mirror image of one another. You've got two teams that look like they're rolling on the ground. They've been able to run the ball for the most part effectively. It's the passing attack that is a completely different story, especially with Justin Fields only attempting 45 passes. So how fair of an assessment do you think that is, that both Chicago and New York are certainly on the same stage where they want to play a little bit more balanced football and get those passing games at the level that the rushing attack is at this point?
Hey, what if they're not? What if this is the new wave for 2022 with new regimes in the front office and head coaching staffs that they just want to run the football old-fashioned way? I personally love it. I know this is a passing era, but I do love the old running style and the ruggedness of it and the toughness of it. And that's part of Matt Eberflus's theme is, you gotta play that way. You gotta be tough. So I know that people are freaking out a little bit about the pass attempts and the wide disparity in run pass, but it's not going to stay that way. But the Bears are going to run the football. I believe the Giants want to run the football as well. And some of the best pieces offensively for each team is in that backfield. So I could not believe it. At one point, I turned to my broadcast partner on Sunday, Tom Thayer. I said, my gosh, the Bears might run for 350 today. And they got to 281, most since 1984 in a game that predates Tom Thayer's Super Bowl era team, which really ran the ball consistently and productively during his time at right guard for the Super Bowl Bears.
Well, Jeff, first let me just say it is such a pleasure to have a run-loving announcer join our cast because I really feel like I've been left out on an island for all of these years. So welcome.
My pleasure. Please, I love it too. My pleasure.
And really, please come back every week, okay? Well, let's deal with Fields though before we do go to the run game, because obviously a very high-profile guy coming out of school. What has he done well? And I know there haven't been many things. And what is it that they realistically think that they might be able to polish up, especially given that he's only got a few days until this game is going to be played?
Well, the big thing is it's a small sample size. I know everybody's in a rush to judgment and a rush to have success with these young quarterbacks. But, I'll just take this season and forget about last season for the moment. First game was a weather game plan. So it was going to be heavily tilted towards the run in the first place. And they won the game. And Obviously, it hasn't really changed that much. However, he's had pockets of success. He's in a chemistry situation, trying to learn guys in a new system. So there's a lot of reasons to say, hey, be patient, and it's going to be a minute. I mean, that's just the way it goes with young quarterbacks. Everybody knows it, but everybody doesn't want to hear it. And honestly, I don't blame the fans or the media for wanting that, but I can't realistically look at this as a football guy and someone who's been a part of this team for 26 years and say, everything's got to be just right now. I understand the minimum number of attempts that has gone on. It's the lowest by far in the league. They're at the bottom of the league in many offensive categories, as they were a year ago, but he's got a lot of tools. So I will think that they'll continue to accentuate that mobility, the movement in the pocket, find some clean windows. I think the biggest thing, Paul and Lance, is that, quarterbacks got to find the layups, and there are layups that can get you in a rhythm. And I believe all passers are rhythm quarterbacks, and that just hasn't happened on a consistent basis yet. Doesn't mean it can't happen at MetLife on Sunday at noon, or 1:00, I should say, New York time. But I just think there's plenty of time to sort this thing out, and I'm not giving up on this season or any other just yet on Justin Fields.
Jeff, clearly quarterback play is synonymous with the play of the offensive line, and much like the Giants, the Bears' offensive line has been put under the microscope, as you could attest to over the last few seasons. Some changes this year. You got a rookie left tackle. Seems as if they're rotating right guard at this point, similar to what the Giants are doing at left guard. How is this unit coming together, and how much do you think, even though they've been running the ball effectively, as we discussed, that the offensive line trying to click is contributing to the ups and downs that they're having through the air with Justin Fields?
Man, I got to tell you, to me, it was going to be the biggest story of the year, how the development of the offensive line, in part, let's just assume for the sake of quarterback evaluation, it's always about the quarterback, and every season is based on, especially a young one, how that person develops. But the biggest story was going to be the offensive line. I mean, it's young. Honestly, I am amazed at what the coaches have done to get a 5th-round pick out of Southern Utah and Braxton Jones ready to start at left tackle and be good at it. I mean, he's a big dude with long arms who's just learning how to use his length. You got another 5th-rounder at right tackle, and that is Larry Borum, who was a heavy player at Missouri, cut weight, was a revelation last year getting a chance, and now has got that thing nailed down at right tackle and learning on the job. And then the right guard situation, Tevin Jenkins, who had never played it, started the season. Yes, he's rotating with Lucas Patrick, who was going to be the penciled-in starter at center, and that has worked out nice as well. He's had a very good performance on the field. Patrick trying to get himself right after being injured for almost the entirety of training camp. And then Sam Mustipher, an undrafted Notre Dame center. Cody Whitehair's been the vet. He's the leader right there at left guard. He's been there a long time with his team. They're their most tenured offensive lineman at 7 years in. But putting all that together is not a simple task. And they've won 2 games with it. They are physical, and they are really good run blockers. So again, leaning into your strength of your football team at the moment until everything else settles down is not a bad way to go so far. And whoever comes out of this game, I know it's been remarked many times here in Chicago this week, one of these 2 teams, barring the unfortunate tie, will be 3-1 at the quarter pole. And I don't know that many would have thought that, given what they're doing and what they're trying to do with new regimes.
Well, given the requirements of the winning team in this game, and Khalil Herbert is going to have to put up some big numbers again, like he did last week when he ran for over $150 against Houston. I know Montgomery's ankle injury is serious enough that he's probably going to miss at least a couple of weeks. So Herbert last year was a terrific kickoff returner and showed some things in his limited action. What can we expect to see from him?
He's a good little back, man. 6th rounder, tough as nails. Last year when he was in for the injured David Montgomery, he led the NFC in rushing during those 4 weeks. So he put up with those 4 games and the 20 carry effort last week. They got him the ground player of the week in the NFL. That's I think 501 yards. He's averaging 5 points something a carry in those games when he's had the opportunity to get 18 or more carries. He's just a good leverage back. He's got a big burst. He's tough to bring down, good contact balance, a lot of the things that David Montgomery has, but he's got some home run hitter to him, and he showed that with a gaping hole for 52 yards in that game last week against Houston. All these guys got to be good pass protectors too, and be able to catch out of the backfield to help out their quarterback. And those are things he does well as well. I think they got a nice 1-2 punch. Love David Montgomery as a fellow Iowa State alum. I watched every single one of his carries for the last 7 years. So great guy. And they both have the same kind of mentality. And I love that about them. They have no give up in them whatsoever. Love them.
We're talking with Bears radio play-by-play announcer Jeff Joniak as we set the stage for the Bears and the Giants at MetLife Stadium on Sunday. Clearly, the receiver numbers are down, Jeff, because your quarterback only attempted 45 passes, so it shouldn't surprise anybody that nobody's stats have jumped off the page. But you look at this group, Darnell Mooney had a career year last year, and it was interesting, Jeff. I was listening to Justin Fields talk to the media this week, and he said Darnell Mooney even came to him and said, listen, you can't force the ball to me. If you're not have anything down the field, then it's got to come naturally. I guess what I'm getting at is, how much, though, do you think Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator, they need to find maybe other ways to get the ball in the hands of a playmaker like Mooney to maybe help jumpstart this passing attack, even if it's not throwing bombs down the field to test the Giants secondary?
You're absolutely right. As I alluded to earlier, and you'll hear offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches say it all the time, you got to find completion. So however that may be, that means, not trying to force it into triple coverage or anything like that. And it could be, how creative these teams are, these offensive coordinators and Brian Daboll in your part and Luke Getsy here in Chicago can get creative with it. But, the timing's got to be there, even for the swing passes or the short passes. Those sometimes are the hardest to complete for whatever reason. But again, if they can just find some completions and, Darnell Mooney, I don't know if you heard about this at all, but I'm doing the post-game show interviewing Matt Eberflus from his office at Soldier Field, and we're up in the booth, and all of a sudden I look, and there's Darnell Mooney a good 30 minutes after the game coming out there in full uniform with the jugs gun and catching passes. I mean, he dropped 2 last week. He's only been targeted 11 times. A guy who had high aspirations for himself, high expectations, out there grinding. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, this is how much it means to him. So there's going to be a different kind of Darnell Mooney out there on Sunday. I beg to guess on that one. But it's not just him. Equanimeous St. Brown has been a nice player for the Bears, knows the system. He's been getting involved. Cole Kmet, I have high expectations for. I'm going to jump on the table for him. I think he's going to be an outstanding tight end by the time this season is over, and a breakout season. He started to have that in the final 10 games of last year. I mean, and, keep using those backs as well to get the passing game until you can figure out how to get that timing and continuity to have a traditional passing offense and get things going.
Jeff, let's flip it to defense. Roquan Smith was a big headline, obviously, with his contract situation just a short time ago. And yet, through these first 3 games, I mean, look at that production, especially against Houston with the 16 tackles. It does not look like it has impacted him at all.
It absolutely has not, Paul. In fact, I just did a feature interview with Justin Jones, our 3-technique defensive tackle, and a new Bear this year in free agency, and said it's been he brought it up on his own volition about how Roquan not at any point during this entire process, and when he was not participating in training camp, ever acted any other way than just a great teammate. Smile on his face, going about his business, and being a part of everything in that locker room. And I think it really made a huge impact. He is their best player. There's no question until further notice. It's Roquan Smith as the best player, learning a new position in a 4-3 versus a 3-4 inside linebacker to weak side linebacker, a prominent piece in this particular scheme where things will flow to you and you're going to have an opportunity to make big plays. And he made a huge one, obviously, with the pick that set up the game-winning field goal on Sunday. I've always loved Roquan. I love his mentality. He too is driven. He wants to be a special kind of player, and he's put up some special numbers, and he will get paid one way or another in the months to come. But right now, he just loves being a Bear linebacker. I know he had dinner recently with Dick Butkus, who was in town. So sharing quotes and notes with Dick Butkus can't be a bad thing for a young linebacker.
Not at all. It's never a bad thing to tap into the past, especially with those very stingy Bears defenses. And when you look at, speaking of the defensive scheme, Jeff, Matt Eberflus, what always stood out to me when he was the Indianapolis Colts defensive coordinator, especially last season, their ability to take away the football was probably a huge staple. And you look at the first 3 games, the Bears defense already has 5 takeaways. Granted, they had 2 interceptions in their win against the Houston Texans, and you referenced the Roquan Smith INT, which helped seal the win. How much do you think they're making progress in that department? I mean, granted, he's got different personnel, but that this is going to be something that could even do a lot of the heavy lifting and help out the offense in changing field position because of the Bears' ability to take away the football.
Well, I've been here when Lovie Smith had the same kind of scheme, same kind of system, same kind of idea. And, you know, you hear coaches talk about, we got to take the ball away. We got to take the ball away. Got to take the ball away. And Lovie put teeth into it. It was not just lip service. It became an obsession. This is the same thing. It is an absolute obsession. It's discussed every single snap, every single play, every single day. It's an expectation in practice and on the field. And you still got to make the plays. But if you're playing hard in the way they want to and the way they grade it extremely hard, from a loaf system to, you name it. There's a lot of isms that Matt Eberflus has come up with through the course of our introduction to him so far as a head coach. But it is not tolerated if you're not running to the football and giving your full effort on every single snap, even in practice, that you're going to find that you're going to get the ball. I even mentioned to Eberflus, I said, there's a little luck involved. And he goes, yeah, I don't really look at it that way. So that ball bounces funny sometimes, but it's amazing when you really, it's a preach point of every team wants to take the ball away. So everybody can say they want it, but it's hard to do consistently. And I'll tell you, I don't know where it's going to wind up, but it's not for a lack of effort. That's for sure. I thought it was funny this week, because the Bears have, I think, 6 forced fumbles, but they've only covered a few of them. And it's a point of emphasis, right? So he called them, there are country fumbles and city fumbles. And he didn't get into great detail, but you can assume city is more traffic, and country, you're out on an open road just by yourself and got to scoop up the football. So any way they can get it hammered into the head of these guys, taking the ball away certainly is a big key to winning football.
Jeff, only having watched limited film on the Bears, and I do want to watch more before kickoff, it does look like Kyler Gordon, the rookie, has been picked on, but yet Eddie Jackson, who you mentioned turnovers a moment ago, he over his career has been a big part of key turnovers. Obviously, he's got a couple of picks. I wonder if you could specifically comment on those 2 players.
All right, we'll start with Kyler. Loved the pick out of Washington. He's a feisty, really gifted athlete, and not afraid to stick his nose in there. He's learning 2 positions, outside and nickel, so he's their number 1 nickel. But yeah, it started with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers did target him a lot, and he'll do that to a lot of young cornerbacks. So it was a baptism up at Lambeau Field. Pardon me, no question about it. But he still is making plays. He broke up a touchdown pass in that game, and it was a big one. I mean, it kept it within reach, and things could have changed if the Bears punched it in on a goal line stand that Green Bay put together. I'm not saying they would have won, but it made a little different outlook to it. And he's essential in the run defense as well. So he's really athletic. Almost had himself a pick last week, breaking on a little flat pass for a flanker screen, but a little smoke route there. But I think he's going to be okay. It's never been too big from him. He was really the penciled-in starter the moment he set foot in the building. He's a bright guy, and he's going to play himself out of any issues. Keep targeting at him. At some point, when these young players are targeted, they're going to make a few plays and turn the tide a little bit. Love Eddie Jackson. He's gone through a lot of personal issues here the last couple of years that I did a long feature with him that kind of brought that to light. And so, it's sometimes hard for players to separate the responsibility of being there every Sunday and getting your mind right at the same time. So It was 31 games between interceptions from 2019, the last game of the year against Minnesota, to that week 1 pick against San Francisco. So I think he feels he's in the best shape of his career. He's mentally, physically, and spiritually in a right place. And he has to be, because he's the post safety, but he's the leader in a very young secondary that last week had 3 rookies in there. So they need his leadership and his guidance and his ability to make things happen on the back end.
Jeff, speaking of the young secondary, I want to piggyback off of your point, because one name that we didn't bring up yet is Jalen Johnson. And you could argue, since he was drafted in 2020, he's developed into really the top corner on the team. Unfortunately, he didn't play last week. His absence and obviously his questionable status, I'm sure, entering this week, how have they had to navigate making up for him, and how significant of a loss has that been in the early stages for the secondary?
Well, he's your number 1 corner, so that's always a significant thing. And they weren't, nobody's throwing at him. I think it's 61 pass attempts and no targets in his direction, dating back to last season. So they're working on these young bucks, and they're, as I said, there were 3 rookies in there last Sunday. Jalen Jones, an undrafted rookie out of Mississippi, got in there, a big, lengthy corner with some wheels. Jaquan Brisker is the safety pairing with Eddie Jackson out of Penn State, also a 2nd-round pick, like Gordon, and a really feisty player as well. Loves to hit, and there's high expectations for him too. So, yeah, I mean, you want to have your guys. You only have so many quality corners. Kindle Vildor is getting a lot of playing time, and he had a good game last week. So those are the directions you got to lean in. I'll tell you this: Matt Eberflus is not afraid to play young players. We got 16 rookies. Maybe 17 that have actually gotten on the field, if you count special teams, already this year, most in the league. And he's definitely going to trust these young players to grow and develop.
Jeff, let me go to the pass rush. Robert Quinn had that team record 18.5 sacks last year. And now, as I look at his stat line, I'm seeing 1 quarterback hit over the first 3 weeks of the season. How surprising is that? Is it much of an alarm right now for this defense?
No alarm. I mean, he's one of the best pass rushers of all time, and those come in droves for a guy like that. Yes, he had an unbelievable year last year. I think all but 3 games he had a sack. So, working in a new system, back to his comfort zone of putting his hand in the dirt and going to get the quarterback. He's unique in terms of his ankle flexion and bendability to get to the quarterback. He makes some really good moves, but it's opened things up for some other players as well. Young players, Dominique Robinson and Travis Gibson, have had 2 sack games in each case. And last week, Justin Jones had himself a sack. So I think he'll be fine. He's gone up against a variety of different left tackles here. There's some young buck, and you guys got one as well, a great one there at left tackle that he'll be trying to put a dent into. But he's a leader, captain also on this team. People love what he does on a very young team, one of the youngest in the NFL. He's the graybeard on this football team. But yeah, they'd like to get the pass rush cooked up. They don't blitz a bunch, and obviously pressure breaks pipes. I could not believe what I saw. Daniel Jones every second he was running around back there last Monday night with all those pressures. So the Bears will try to focus on doing the same.
Yeah, you figure that'll be certainly a huge storyline to watch, especially against the Giants' interior line, which you were hitting on, that struggled against the Cowboys. Jeff, last one for me. Special teams has been a bit of a topic of talk in Chicago, as you know, with respect to the kicking game and other aspects. How much is Cairo Santos, I know he's off to a fairly good start, stabilize things for the most part, especially since, let's face it, the Bears, like the Giants, have been playing a lot of close games in the early stretch of this season?
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game in today's NFL. I think they set a record for how many games so far decided by 1 score or less in the opening weeks of the season. But yeah, Cairo's absolutely automatic. He made all 5 of his kicks on Sunday. Soldier Field, not an easy place. And certainly when you got puddles of water on the field for week 1, that was quite the challenge. So there were 2 missed extra points in that game. But he's become a guy that nobody really talks about. And I think that's the best thing you could say about a kicker right now in this league, because it fluctuates. And he went through some tough times in his career with Kansas City and other stops. But since coming to the Bears, he had a streak of, I think, 40 in a row, dating from one year to the next last year. And he's come in strong again. And yeah, I have no worries at all about Cairo Santos. Got a new punter, Trenton Gill. had a really good punter, in my opinion, in Patrick O'Donnell, and he happened to be the special teams player of the week this week up there in Green Bay. He went to the other side, guys. Other side. Pat, you got to go where the money is, and just a terrific guy. But we got a punter, a young man out of NC State, and he's got a big leg. He's done a really nice job so far. And even though, Roquan makes that pick, it's 4 kneel downs basically to get on the left hash and kick the game winner last week from 30. You got a brand new punter and holder, in the end of a game like that. You never know, right? And the pressure hits everybody differently, but that's been good too. It's been a smooth operation. So return game, looking at variety of options there. I know Velus Jones Jr. is somebody they'd like to look at in the return game, but he has not been able to play just yet due to a hamstring, getting closer. Not sure what his status will be for Sunday. And they got another rookie back there returning kicks from Baylor and Treston Ebner. So again, emphasis on young, special teams unit dotted with young players.
To your point, at least Luke Getsy and Lucas Patrick, Jeff, chose the right side. They came over from the dark side. So it balances out.
Yeah, and Equiminius St. Brown. Yes, exactly.
Yes, exactly. Another one.
This little short trip. Heck, Lucas Patrick said he used to come to Chicago on weekends anyway when he had a bye week and long weekends there. So he enjoyed Chicago. So why not?
There you go. So those 3 guys at least finally solved that riddle. It is Jeff Joniak, Bears radio play-by-play announcer, setting the stage for the Bears and the Giants on Sunday. Jeff, always good catching up with you. Greatly appreciate the time and the insight, and we look forward to seeing you in East Rutherford, New Jersey this weekend.
All right, we'll be there. Very good. Thanks, Paul and Lance. Good to talk to you guys. Good luck the rest of the season.
The Giants' official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. Great look at the Bears from Jeff Joniak, the voice of the Bears on the radio. And now we'll wrap up our Friday podcast like we do every week. Our very own Bob Papa, the voice of the Giants, had a chance to talk to Giants head coach Brian Daboll.
The Giants take on the Chicago Bears, a battle of 2-1 teams, storied rivalry, the Giants and Bears. And as always, we're joined by the head coach of the New York Football Giants, Brian Daboll. And Coach, before we get on to the game this week, just talk about the way your team responded during the week after suffering the first loss of the season in a hard-fought game against the Cowboys.
Yeah, I think that's the job of myself and the coaches, is to be consistent regardless of results. The players know what is expected of them throughout the week and how we're going to prepare. And, you fix a few things that you need to fix, whether you win or whether you lose, and you move on with a positive mindset and, the ability to get to the next team quickly.
Coach, obviously Saquon Barkley is off to a great start, leads the league in yards from scrimmage. Last year he only had 1 game of 70 or more rushing yards. That came against the Bears, ironically, in Chicago. This year, all 3 games, consistent, making big plays for you. Just talk about the way he's sort of embraced what's going on and the leadership that he's shown with this football team.
Yeah, he's been great. I think you can go back to all the interviews I've done since I've been here in OTAs, and it really started back in OTAs with him, and I think just trying to build his confidence is important on our end, and as he goes out there and he performs the task we ask him to do, I think his confidence improved on his end. But you could see it as soon as you got out there, the talent that this guy had. Quick, powerful, explosive, can run routes, has good hands, and I think that that went right into training camp, and you saw that. And I think all his hard work and his dedication and his mindset have been a huge asset for us.
Now we fast forward to this week's game, right? You got the Bears coming in, and they run the football. Last week they did a tremendous job on the ground and beating the Texans. They're averaging 187 yards rushing per game. Is it what they do a lot scheme-wise, or is it just something where they are executing at a high level and they're just whipping the guy in front of them?
I think it's probably a combination of both. They have very good runners. Their line's been doing a good job of getting a hat for a hat, and they've been breaking some big ones. That's a identity, I think, of their football team, is to be tough and be able to run the ball. And they've bought into what Coach Eberflus is teaching.
And explosive plays. You guys this season have 3 runs of 20 or more yards. They have 5 of 20 or more yards. So chunk plays are something that you talk about, and methodically going down the field is great. but in order to be able to score consistently, you need some of these chunk-type plays, don't you?
Absolutely. The odds of scoring touchdowns or getting points when you have a chunk play dramatically increases. And in the running game, it's usually a result of a running back making somebody miss or a missed tackle where they take it, for a long play. There's going to be some holes that open up that, the first 3 or 4 or 5 yards might be clean sailing, and then all of a sudden there's a few guys, and if you can make those guys miss, that's usually how big runs happen in this league.
When you look at your passing game, Coach, you only have one pass play of over 30 yards. That was Shep's 65-yard touchdown in the game against Tennessee in Week 1. Some coaches that I've been around, not just in football, but when I was working in the NBA, some guys have always are kind of complaining about what this guy can't do. You come from the school of, you always talk about positives of, hey, what guys can do. When you look back at some of the things that you're lacking in your passing game, do you take the positives of, hey, we've had some plays there, it's either a protection broke down or a ball was dropped, but we're getting to it. Now we just have to be more consistent, and there's a positive feeling despite the fact that the numbers aren't where you want it to be.
Absolutely. I think the challenging part of being a coach is, coming in from a loss and overreacting, and that's not what we're going to do here. There's a lot of things that are done the way we want them, and the result right now might not be what we want, but I think you show them things that, hey, these have looked good. If we get into this situation next time, let's make sure we do this a little better, or have our eyes over here, or finish on a play. But that's how we approach it.
The other component of this, Coach, is special teams, right? I mean, whether it's a kick that's made or creating field position. Hey, let's face it, the Cowboys had a score in the game the other night that was set up strictly via special teams. Talk about the emphasis that you've put on that as far as not only being sound on your special teams, but also trying to turn it into an advantage.
Yeah, I think, we've made some plays. The first 2 weeks, we got the ball on a muff punt. We went down there on the first kickoff of the Carolina game and caused a fumble that we returned. But we'll keep on working and improving and eliminating some of these big plays that, look, that's complementary football. You kick the ball off, you tackle them inside the 20, our defense goes out, they get a 3 and out, we get good field position. That's team football, and we work on that every week, and special teams is a critical element to that.
Coach, the other thing, too, is creating opportunities. You guys have forced 3 fumbles and recovered 3 opponents' fumbles. 2 of them have come on specials, 1 on defense. How do you increase the turnover productivity from the defensive unit?
Yeah, we talk about it every day. Probably the first thing we talk about in our meetings from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Monday, should I say. And we work on it every day in practice. We do drills, and I think that's just being diligent as a player in terms of practicing it the right way, which we have been. They just haven't come yet. So we can't get discouraged. We got to have 11 hats to the ball. We got to rip and strip and target our guys that we think are a little bit loose on ball security, and stay at it.
Final question, Coach. Obviously, Kayvon and Azeez returned last week. They worked really hard to come back from their injuries to get on the field. Not easy. You said they were on a pitch count. Are you seeing more and more from them where their roles can be expanded a bit?
Yeah, I think these guys have worked extremely hard to get back. They played a select amount of plays last game, and hopefully we'll see them play a little bit more this game. Again, the players' safety and well-being, not just from game to game, but for the season, is very important to us, and we're trying to do right by them.
Coach, we appreciate a couple of minutes. Best of luck this afternoon as you try to wrap up this homestand. You don't really say that in football that much, a homestand, but you had 3 in a row. It's almost like baseball. Has it been fun being at home for a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, last week's atmosphere and the first game against Carolina, it's been electric here. Wish we could have had a different result last week, but the fan base, the support, how they have been during the games has really created an advantage for us on the defensive side of the ball with they're cheering, they're yelling, and we need to do a good job of doing things that keep those guys going, because it's very, very helpful as a home team when you have a crowd like that.
Coach, we appreciate the time as always. Best of luck.
All right, thanks, Bob.
We thank Brian Daboll, we thank Jeff Joniak, and we thank Richie James for joining us on this edition of the Giants Huddle Podcast as the Giants get ready to take on the Bears at MetLife Stadium on Sunday at 1 o'clock. They try to bounce back from that loss against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football in Week 3, but the Giants still 2-1. Bears 2-1 should be a fun game. Hope we see you guys out there at MetLife Stadium. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, but remember, go back one episode on the Giants Huddle podcast feed. Check out that Daryl Johnston interview. It's a great interview. Check it out. It's on YouTube, podcast channels, Giants.com, Giants app, and go to that separate podcast feed for draft season. That last episode posted this week as well. Dane Brugler joins the show again to talk about some of the college prospects that are making noise heading into the NFL draft in 2023. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.